So welcome, Sharon Gaskin, who's someone who I've known for many, many years, at least 10, we worked out the other day.
Steve.
I don't know how, I've got no idea, but I ended up coming down to spend a day with you, didn't I? Talking about your business, and we had a lovely lunch in a lovely hotel somewhere. I remember that.
We did. It was in Oxford,
Yes.
many years ago. And you were really late. Do you remember? You got lost.
Oh, no, I think it was my sat nav or my Google whatever's took me to completely the wrong hotel.
That was it.
I
Yeah.
was absolutely mortified when I realised. I got there and I thought, where is she? And it was a long, tough drive as well. And
Yeah.
I got there and I was at completely the wrong hotel. And you were so kind when I was in such a state as well by the time I got there. But a nice lunch sorts everything out, doesn't
Oh, it was
it?
lovely. Yeah. A
Yeah.
nice lunch and putting the world to rights. How did I think? It must have been through Steve, I think, because Steve was doing my website at the time.
Okay, for
Um,
everyone who's watching and listening, that was my ex-business partner. He ran my favorite restaurant, then he became my business partner, then he ran my hotel for me, then he became a web designer, and then we got together in the end.
and
Inevitable.
yeah, inevitable indeed. Yeah, but
Yeah,
yeah, I think it was pretty certain it was through Steve that
yeah.
how I found you, and
Well,
and all of that stuff. Yeah.
that's
So
amazing.
yeah,
So tell everyone who's watching what your business, who you are, what your business is, and who do you help?
yeah. So I'm Sharon Gaskin, and I'm the founder of the Trainers Training Company, which I've had since 2009. And
Uh-huh.
basically, it's a business with a very specific niche because I work with freelance trainers. So trainers, as in people who go into corporates and deliver training courses, not dog trainers or personal trainers. Many people have sort of inquired via my website and have realised they're like a dog trainer or whatever. Like, no, but no.
This is so strange, isn't it?
I know exactly.
And
So,
and you've been doing it for a very long time, haven't you? How did you get into it?
what? How did I get into training, or how did I
Yeah.
my business? So,
Well, first, either let me just turn my daughter off, who is doing that thing that they do when they can't put it in one message, so they send you about 15 messages.
yeah, indeed.
Let me just turn my notifications off.
So, getting into training to begin with. So, I started off in HR, as a green whatever I was, 21-year-old out of university,
Oh,
and
bless.
I basically started off. It was a temp role because I didn't really know what I wanted to do, and I started off in this sort of HR department because I thought it would be about dealing with people, and I love
Yes.
with people and talking to people, etc. But I very quickly found that it wasn't about dealing with people; it was about pushing bits of paper around,
Uh-huh.
which was not really me.
Not
And
good.
but I was quite lucky because in this company that I was working for, and in this there was a kind of HR department, and there was training. And the girl, I say girl because we were girls then, we were like early 20s, and she was running training courses, and she said to me one day, "Oh, I actually don't really like doing them on my own." She said, "Would you like to, do you fancy helping me?" And I said, "Yeah, okay, I'll give it a try." I didn't have a clue what I was doing, and I was kind of wheeled in as the sort of assistant, and helped her with it, and I kind of really loved it, and because it was about dealing with people. Then she sort of asked me to do more and more, and then after about, I don't know how long it was, a year or whatever, maybe less. She left because she decided she wanted to go backpacking up around the world, and training thing was not for her. And so, and obviously, as I'd been half doing the job, they kind of gave me the job, and so I stopped doing the HR stuff and pushing bits of paper around, and I started running training courses and being in the training room and
And
dealing
did
with
you bring
people.
someone in to be with you? Because I totally agree with her that I love doing it, but only if there's someone else there. Otherwise, I feel all the performance anxieties on me.
Yeah, no, I was fine, although I do remember in those early days because, again, I was very young and it was very male dominated, working in financial services, and
Oh, okay.
and it was kind of like, the thing is about when you do corporate training, you're dealing with people who quite often don't want to be there because they've been sent by their managers. And so
Mm.
they go in there and they're really defensive to begin with, or they're disruptive, and non-participative, and it can be really challenging. And I just
They
remember,
lean back and fold their
that's
arms and
it,
say, right,
lean back,
impress me. Yeah.
exactly. And I used to call them the cardboard cutouts as well, the ones that never said anything. And many a time I was, I got to the break and then I'd be in the toilets like crying and thinking, oh God, I don't think this job is for me. And then I'm like, come on, pull yourself together. And because you learn, don't you, to sort of deal with those situations.
Yeah.
But I mean, yeah, that was how it kind of got started. And then I was in that company for a while, and then I went to a different company again in financial services, and I was there for a good few years, and then I left there because I was fed up with all the politics,
Yeah.
just getting me down. Although I loved my job, but the environment that I was working in was just really getting me
I've
down.
never lasted in corporate longer than 18
Oh,
months because of that.
just
Either I'm oblivious to the politics or I get full foul of them.
exactly, and it was just getting on my nerves. And I realized, so I started applying for the jobs, but quickly realized when you go for a job in training, it's like a full-time job, because every job interview that you go for, they want you to run a mini training course and all of this stuff. So there was all this prep and these long sort of application forms that you had to fill in, and it was literally like a full-time job.
Yeah.
And I thought, I can't do this while I'm still in a job. So I basically left my job without a job to go to, which was a bit scary.
Brave.
I was
Yeah.
I was confident I would get a job, but it would just take me, a few months. And then while I was happily sort of filling in application forms for said jobs, I discovered that I was pregnant. So I was like,
Okay.
okay, right. So maybe this is not the best time to be, because I went through all this thing about, should I go for the interview? And because I was getting interviews, but shall I tell them that I'm pregnant and all this sort of stuff? And then
Yeah.
just decided that no, this is too much, because I don't know how it's going to be, when I've
Yeah.
had a baby, and what kind of job I want to apply for and all of this stuff. So did that. Amy was born, and then so I'm like, okay, I'm ready to, get a job again, because I quickly realised I didn't really want to be staying at a mum, stay at home. That wasn't really me. So I thought I don't really want to go back into insurance, because I'm a mum now, and I'm all like warm and fluffy and kind of,
Yeah.
sort of. So I've got
Yeah.
this job. I got this job in a charity, and it was a charity for the blind down in Brighton, actually,
Ah,
not far from you.
yeah.
And they brought me in because they said that they wanted to come into the 20th century, as was almost 21st. No, when was this? Yeah, about 1997. So they wanted to come into the 20th, 21st century. Um, and so I was like, oh, great, this is great. Got in there, very quickly realised that they did not want to come into the 20th
Oh, okay.
century. And all of these ideas that I was bringing, they just didn't want to do any of it, because they were
Wow.
really stuck in their ways.
So was the person who was interviewing completely like from outside the company and just going by what they'd been told, or how was that working?
I have no idea. I think it all sounded good on paper, but when
Yeah.
it actually came to it, they just didn't like it, or maybe they
Yeah,
just didn't like
mortifying for
me. I don't
you.
know.
It's
But
always
I
a
was just clashing with this woman all the time. She was horrible. She was horrible to me. She was nasty. She was quite a lot older than me, which is not saying anything. But I mean, she was, because I was still young then, and she was, yeah, it was miserable. So I just thought I did had enough of this. So I
mm.
scurried off back to insurance. So I'm thinking, here are my spiritual home, in
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
financial services. And so I got a new job, and literally, there's a pattern to this. So literally within 3 weeks of starting, I was pregnant again.
Oh my word.
And I
Well,
remember,
I'm going to restrain from making any comment on this show. How much space? I mean, I literally 1997 was when I had my second surprise baby as well, so I totally get you. How much was it? How long was in between your two?
There's just over a year, so
Oh, wow. Okay.
14 months, yeah. So no, actually, there's 2 years. So I got pregnant when it was like 14 months, but in actual
Yeah,
birth
yeah,
time,
yeah, yeah.
it's between them. So I remember just sort of, I remember doing the test in the toilet at work and thinking, oh Jesus Christ, and then going back and having to have this meeting with my new manager to say, oh, I'm really happy here. I know I've only just started, but actually, she wasn't
Yeah.
very happy, as you can imagine.
No.
But anyway, I remember working right up until the last minute. I was in this training room. It was red hot because it was August. Ryan was born in August, and this training room that I was in was literally like a conservatory. It was all glass,
Oh, good God.
boiling. And I remember putting these flip charts up and standing on this chair and like with my bump and everything. People saying
Wow.
you're gonna have that baby because I literally worked up right until about the week before. Because I
Yeah, I
thought,
did my first one. I worked up to a week before, and
yeah,
then I remember walking home on that last day, and I could barely walk. It was around the corner, so it wasn't that far, but I could, and I just thought, oh, and then I got home to find out I'd been made redundant,
oh
and it was
God,
a woman owner of the company as well. I won't name it because she's quite well known, and she'd been pregnant at the same time as me, so we'd been sitting in the staff room having tea and toast, trying to keep our toast down. And then and I worked up to a week before, and I was intending to come back. And the minute I got home, I got a call from the recruitment consultancy who placed me there to say they're advertising your job.
God.
I know. So, really, you give everything to these companies and they just don't appreciate you at all, do they?
No, no,
So
exactly.
that's one of the reasons that we go into self-employment, isn't it?
Well, indeed, indeed. But I did go back, I had Ryan, and then I did go back to my job, and I really loved this job. It was great. Had a bit of trouble on that front because there was a guy there who basically wanted me to come back, but wanted me. What was it? I could do 3 days a week, but he wanted me to do the job of a 5-day a week person in 3 days a week. It was all very
Oh,
complicated. There's another story with
okay.
that. But anyway, so I carried on with that job and I was very happy there. But the next thing that happened that tipped me into self-employment was we'd moved into this new house, and it was a lovely house. We bought it off a plot. It was down in Sussex.
Okay.
Never done that before. It was like 5 bedrooms. We chose all our kitchen, all of that sort
That
of
was
love.
going to be your forever home.
Yeah, exactly. It was really lovely, and we moved in the December, and then in the April, my husband came home and said, that job that I was headhunted for? And I said, yes. And he said, it was going to be in London. I said, yes. And he said, well, it's going to be in Birmingham now. I was like,
Oh,
okay.
oh.
So we had to up sticks, move up to the Midlands, leave this house. Fortunately, the company bought it from us. That was really, really good. So we didn't have to worry about that. But we found ourselves up in the West Midlands. And obviously, I had to leave my job because, yeah, I had to leave.
You do,
So
yes.
and I was about to start applying for the jobs, and then I thought, actually, do I want to do this? Because my children by that stage were 4 and 2, and Amy was just about to go to school.
Yeah.
And I thought, oh God, this is going to get way more complicated with
Yeah. The
holiday.
driving around and the holidays and the half terms and the
Exactly. So I thought, right, I'm going to go freelance now. This is my chance because for years I've been on the other side of the desk when freelancers came in, did training within the organization and handed me over their invoice. And I
uh-huh.
used to look at it and go, oh, this is all right, isn't it? This is, I wish I was sort of, earning that amount of money and all of that stuff. So that's what I did. So I set up my own business, and originally
As a
as
trainer
a
doing
trainer,
your
yeah, as a
yeah.
trainer, yeah. So it was a traditional, as I call it, traditional training business. I was doing management development courses for financial services, which is obviously the background that
Your niche.
I had, my niche. So I went into it, didn't have a clue what I was doing. Did a lot of associate work. So in the training world, so associate work is like contract work, so that a training company will use you as one of their trainers,
Right.
and you'll run the training course, but you won't own the client, and they will charge the client £2,000
Whatever they
a
like,
day,
yes.
and they'll pay you, 200 quid a day or whatever it was. So I did a lot of that in my first year, and I was really maxed out with associate work. I really was, because I worked out how to get it. So I was training, 4 or 5 days a week, every week. So, and then I realized a couple of things. One, like, this is ridiculous, because I started my business so that it could work around the children, and
Yeah.
and like I'm like it's like a full-time job. And secondly, it was with the money, because I just had one direct client at that time, and my direct client was my old employers, because when I left my old employers, even though they were down south, and when they heard I was going freelance, they was like, "Oh God, you can't leave us. You need to carry on." And I was
Yeah.
like, "Yeah, okay, but I'll invoice you." They were fine with it. So at that time, I was charging £9.50 a day for my old employer, so my direct client. But the associate work, it was 150 or £200, you know.
Oh,
And I'm funny actually, because I had to. I know you said very often that you're a very visual person, and I must be like that too, because I had to. I just remember getting a spreadsheet, which is even more bizarre because I hate spreadsheets. But basically, I put down all the days that I was doing for this one direct client that I had at 9.50 a day, and total, and the amounts, and the total amount of money. And in the other column, I did all the days that I was working for as an associate, and what I was charging, and the amount of money. And I looked at it and I was like, oh my God, in
what
the
are you
left column,
doing?
I'm like earning 6 times the money for a third of the days. And I was like, and I knew that logically, but I had to see it. And I
Yes.
was like, what are you doing? Like, what are you doing here? So I scrapped all the associate work. I just got rid of it all. I just
Wow.
basically contacted all the companies, said, I'm not doing this anymore. Um, and so it felt like I was back to square one, because I was like, okay, I don't have any clients now, because I was determined I was going to get clients of my own. And so then the
Did you
hard
have a
work,
plan for how to do that?
well, no.
Excellent.
Other than, you can't be a lady that lunches, and this is serious now, because I need to, get on with it and earn some
Get some
money.
business in. So did none of the associate companies offer you a raise?
No, I no.
Wow, what a commodity you were. That's terrible, isn't it?
Mm. They don't
But I
kind of.
suppose it's a bit like all things like that. You are a commodity if you're not willing to go out and get your own work, do your own marketing. And that's why people sign up as an associate, because they just want to do the training. They don't want to do the marketing. Yeah.
Exactly. So I was a bit kind of, yeah, what the hell do I do? And the first thing that I did was I got on the phone to all my to people that I knew, and particularly people I'd worked with in the past. And I always remember this real light bulb moment. It's something, and if anyone's listening to this, and you've been on one of my courses, I tell this story all the time on all my courses, because it was so powerful. Because I really had to get over myself, because I really went into as everybody does, like, if I pick up the phone to somebody, like, what are they going to think of me? Like, are they going to think, what does she want?
I simply can't do it.
Right,
I can only have phone calls with people if we have an arranged time to speak.
right.
I was a tele salesperson at one point, and I sold nothing. I mean, I just couldn't. The act. I don't even ring my family and friends. They have to ring me. I'm not. I literally have a phobia of the phone.
Right.
It's terrible.
Yeah.
But you
Well,
were picking up the phone and talking to what other trainers you'd worked with, because presumably you couldn't go to the companies that you'd worked. for as an associate.
No, but there were people that I had. Well, I can't even remember the relationships, but there was this particular person I had worked with, and again she was one of my direct. No, I can't remember how she. Anyway, so
Yeah.
I remember she'd worked for. Um, she used to work for, and we probably can't say the name of the company, but she used to work for a very large financial services organization, and I had coached her within this financial services organization, and she'd moved to another one. That was it. It was
Ah,
only for me
right.
to contact her because she'd moved to another one. She'd moved to another financial services organization. And so I contacted her and I said, this is what's happened. Can you introduce me to somebody who's responsible for training in your organization? And she said two things to me that I've never forgotten. The first thing was, yes, of course I can. I'd love to. Brilliant. And the second thing was, if I'd have known that was what you'd have wanted, I'd have done that ages ago. I'd have asked for you.
Wow.
And that was a real wow for me, because what it taught me was that the only reason that she hadn't done that for me was because I hadn't asked.
Wow.
Because people aren't mind readers. And if you don't contact them, and if you don't ask for help, they just assume that you don't need it. And I was like, oh wow, okay, because when you think about it, because I mean, they were never cold calls, they were all people that I knew.
Yes, yes.
But when somebody phones you, it's like if you phone me wanting help, I know you won't pick up the phone, but you phoned
I
me at
might
a
email you
later
though.
time, yeah, okay, and you ask me for specific help, then I'd be like, yes, of course I can if I
Yeah,
can.
yeah.
And people are like that, aren't they? They're always too happy
They
to.
want to help. Yes.
So
It's
when I
funny, talking of Judith as we were earlier, she used to have a phrase just came into my mind. She used to say, "You're hallucinating that again, aren't you?" Because I used to imagine what people were thinking.
yeah,
And she
that's
said,
it.
"You're hallucinating that again." She says, they're not telepathic."
Yeah,
She's
exactly. Exactly. We get ourselves like all tied up in knots about what we think people are thinking, and normally they're not thinking anything. They're
no,
just to hear
absolutely.
from us, and to have a conversation. So that was my first gig, if you like, because not only did the lovely Gillian introduce me to somebody in her organisation, head of L&D. Yeah, I still remember him now. He was called Nick, and I went down to Reading to their offices and had a lovely conversation with him, and came out with my first direct client, and it was like,
Marvelous.
wow. And so I did a lot of that, just like contacting
Okay.
people and
So,
asking
so
for help.
how did you move from, which is what, that's all wonderful. So how did you move from being a direct consultant who did their own marketing, well, presumably, to helping other trainers?
Yes. So I got my own direct clients, and I did that for about 7 years quite happily, because I'd built up a lot of direct clients and I now understood how to do it. But a couple of things happened in around about 2009. So the first thing that happened was I noticed
Apart from a
that.
global financial crisis.
No, 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 no. Yeah, I forgot about that. So I don't know. I don't pay attention to things like that. So the first thing I noticed was that people were well, no. The first thing I noticed was I just thought I was thinking back to when I first started my training business and how there didn't seem to be any help around for people like me. So what I found was that there was a lot of generic advice around, and still is, on how to start a business,
Mm.
but there was nothing that was specifically for trainers. And I just, in my head, I was just kicking around thinking, do you know, it would be really nice if there was a resource that people could go to that was just for trainers that would
Mm.
help build a business. So that was floating around. The other thing I noticed was that I was getting asked a lot from other people saying, hey, I'm thinking of starting a training business. Like, oh, I see that you do it, kind of pick your brains, that
Oh,
dreaded
that classic
phrase.
phrase, yes.
And And so I was doing,
Let me pick your brain so I can become your competition.
oh, exactly, and but then one day, this woman was sitting there, we were having a coffee, and I was sharing everything that I'd learned. And I said to her, while we're here, I said, actually, you can do something for me. I said, tell me if there were two courses that you could go on, and one was how to create and grow a business, and the other one was how to create and grow a training business. Which one would you go for? And she said, well, it's a no-brainer. I'd go for the second one. I was like, oh, okay, thank you very much. So I'm like, okay. So I wrote, the next thing I did was I wrote this ebook, and it's still on my website now. It's called How to Launch a Training Business in 30 Days. And it's a mixture of
Marvelous.
information and practical exercises. And I poured everything that I'd learned. And it was funny, actually, a bit like you, I'm sure, when you wrote your marvelous book, which I read over Christmas.
Oh, thank you.
That's when you do something like that, I remember sitting back thinking, oh my God, I didn't realize I knew all that. It was,
Exactly.
I was
Yes.
like, God, it just sort of came out to me. So I did that. And then I stuck it on this one-page website, which by that time I'd called the Trainers Training Company, and stuck it on there. And then I thought, well, that's not a business, is it? Because I was kind of thinking of developing a business. I was thinking,
When was this? What year?
it's 2009. So,
God,
so
I was just getting getting through my fifth or sixth online business. And, yeah, it was all falling down around my ears.
oh
And you were just
God,
starting. How marvelous!
yeah, I know. And I was, yeah. So I thought it's not a business, and who the hell would be interested in spending money on this and all of that stuff? And so I left.
Can I just ask some technical
Yeah,
questions? Sorry.
yeah, yeah.
So you had a marvelous domain name with so many keywords in it. It's unreal. You had a website that was presumably stuffed with keywords. Did
One
you
page.
actually did people buy the book or opt in for it?
Well, to begin with, they didn't do anything because I didn't do any of that. I didn't really know what I wanted to do with it. I
Okay.
just had this book, and that's why I thought it's not really a business.
And was it on Amazon then?
No, nothing like that. It was just on
Well,
this
so the
page.
book was sitting on your computer, and you had a
Yeah,
one-page
basically,
website
basically.
that presumably started attracting traffic
Yes, yes.
because
But
that
I
was the
didn't
good
really
old
know what
days.
to do with it. Yeah. So I didn't really know because I thought it's not a
So
business.
were people calling you? What was the call to action on the one-page website?
Oh God, I think just to buy this book. I think that was
And
just
how
to
did they do that?
they just paid money. Now, how was it? PayPal? I think it was PayPal.
Okay, PayPal. Oh, so you had a button on the site. They could buy.
Yeah,
They could give you money through PayPal,
yeah,
and
yeah.
then they ended up on a thank you page where they downloaded the PDF.
Yes, something like that.
This is really
Yes,
important because what we didn't realize in those days was that Google could read PDFs.
right.
So
Oh,
all of your book was counting as user generated specific specialist content.
right. Okay.
So it wasn't just your one page website, it was your one page website and your whole book content.
Right. Okay.
That was giving you search engine welly.
So, yes. So I had that, but it wasn't a business, and I didn't think I had any intentions of having it as a business. I didn't really, excuse me, didn't really know what I was doing with it. But then what happened, the thing that did tip me over the edge into a business was my son. So Ryan, he was this time he was nine in 2009 he was nine. And he was playing a lot of tennis and he was just locally doing all these tournaments and he was winning them all and so like any sport like the LTA as it is in tennis they got involved and they said oh we need to go into this high performance program in
Oh, that
Birmingham.
sounds expensive.
It was and well, it wasn't really so much expensive, it was just because they funded quite a lot of it, but it was the commitment, it was the time. So I had to pick him up from school every day at lunchtime, take him to the tennis centre, stay with him because he was quite young still, and all of that
Yeah.
stuff, 5 days a week. So I thought, oh, I can't really, be going all over the country delivering training workshops. I need to be at home. I need to
Yeah.
that we decided that this, I wanted to support him in this. Um, so going back to 2009, the online world was just getting started, and we could do, webinars and Skype and all of those things. And I was like, oh, I can work from home and I can create a business from home, but it's not the business that I currently have, because in those days you couldn't deliver training via online. It was all
Virtually, yeah.
face. And so I thought, well, this thing that I've got, this one-page website, maybe that's the thing,
Mm.
and maybe I should develop the thing. And so one of the things that well, I think you know this about me. Once I decide on something, then I just do it. So I
Yes.
was like, within a couple of days of making this decision, I'd closed my other business down. I'd given away
Oh,
all of my clients to
wow.
my people that I knew, who were very happy because they inherited thousands of pounds worth of business.
Yeah.
Because I knew that I couldn't focus on these two things. I decided that this one-page website would be the thing. The trainers training company would be a proper business. And so, God, that first year was hard because I knew nothing about internet marketing, online marketing, all of that stuff. I'm like, how the hell?
Even developing your offers.
Yeah, I just didn't know anything. It was all a complete kind of mystery to me. But I started off, the first thing that I did, it just all developed kind of organically. It was kind of, the first thing I did was I decided I would run a course, but a
Hmm.
face-to-face course.
Hmm.
And it was how to create a successful and profitable training business. And I I wrote the course, and in my mind, it was for people who were either thinking about becoming freelance or were in their first couple of years of business. And I remember thinking, as I was marketing this, oh, well, I don't care if I get one man and his dog here. Like this, I've got to start somewhere.
Yes, yeah. Hey, I have questions.
Yeah.
Did you have a mailing list from people who'd bought the book or opted in to get the book and then not bought, or was it social media was getting going then? It was about
Twitter, Twitter
2006.
was the Twitter was the thing that I basically I would join Twitter, and I was really active on Twitter, and there were loads of trainers on Twitter in those days, and Twitter was
Okay.
a very different place than it is now. I'm not even on it now. I'd left it years ago because it's horrible. But I basically had the thing. I had a freebie, I had a download. I used to put the links all over Twitter. Got people signed up to my mailing list from Twitter, and then started mailing them about this course. Um, and the first course that I did, I got 6 people there, and I was really,
Wow.
delighted. And I started running it. But the funny thing was, um, once I'd run it several times, I realized that although I designed this course for people um, who were thinking about becoming freelance or new into business, there were more people coming on that course who'd had their business for years. I
Right.
mean, literally for years, like longer than I had, way longer than I had. To the extent I was like, "What are you doing here? Like, you should be, you should be running the course." Like, I feel like a fraud. And the reason why they were doing it, or coming to this course, was because they'd gone down the typical freelance trainer route. And let's face it, I
And
did
become
when
as
I
associates.
become an associate, got a bit of business from their previous employer, not really thought about marketing, maybe put all their eggs in one basket with a couple of companies, and that had dried up. And then 5, 6, 7 years later, they'd got to start all over again
Right.
because they hadn't put the basics in place to begin with. They hadn't got a marketing plan, they hadn't done the foundations. And all of them were saying, "Oh, I wish I'd have done this course when I first started, blah, blah, blah." But what I realized was that now I had two markets, because
Hmm.
I had the new people, but I also had people who had had their businesses for years and were still struggling and wanted to work out how to get clients. So I ran that course, and then that course was so successful that I then had to ended up using other people to run it for me, because again, I didn't want to go traveling, or so I was
Yeah,
just
perfect. Yeah. So you were running them around the country.
Yeah, well, I got other people to run them for me,
Nice.
and just so I used them as an associate, um, so I did all of that, and so that was the first thing that I did. And then whilst I was doing this, because it's funny, isn't it, how your businesses sort of develop, and you think of new ideas or something comes along,
Organically, and then you're in the
takes
shower
it,
one morning and you think, oh, I could do that.
in a different direction. So the next thing that happened, I realized with the whole networking thing, I was doing a lot of networking and going along to these events, and they were all very just really false. Like it was all about thrust people in those days, thrusting business cards at you, and
Having
trying to
a
sell you
greasy old
this,
breakfast at
and,
7 a.m. and then
you
have
know,
faking referrals, so you had your two referrals for the week.
yeah, but also the just the fakeness of it all. Like, hi Nicola, how are you? Oh, I'm great. How's business? Oh, it's great, thank you. How about you?
Yeah.
Oh, it's great, thank you. And when I was in that environment, what I really wanted to say was, actually, I need a bit of help, or I'm struggling with this, or what do I
Or
do?
how do you handle this? Yeah.
Yeah, and it didn't feel a very safe environment to do that. And also there were people from all sorts of different businesses who didn't really understand the training world. Excuse me. So I thought, right, I'm going to set up something of my own. So I started running events for trainers called Trainer Talk Live. And they were 1 day events, and there were a mix of speakers. And also I had little workshoppy sessions where
Breakout sessions.
people
Yeah.
brought in their challenges and all that kind of stuff. And so I was running those um, again for a few years, and they were just 1 day events. And then after a few years of running these, a couple of things happened. Was that I was thinking, one, I looked at the money side of it and realized that as much as I liked that, as we all do, that warm, fluffy feeling when we've run a nice workshop and everything,
Yeah.
I wasn't really making any money out of this, but all the work that I was putting into it,
Yeah.
4 times a year, it was netting me about £1,000, right? For all
Oh,
the
well, over the year, that's not good.
And the other thing that wasn't right was that I had this vision to create a community, and this wasn't happening.
Right.
And people were
So
coming back to
people were coming along to the events, but they weren't then keeping in touch in
me.
between.
They weren't keep, and the reason for that was that trainers, being trainers, are always very mindful of their next bit of work. And if there's a sniff of a piece of work coming in, like they won't commit to going to to an event. So it was all my events were always, well, I'll go if I've got nothing else to do, kind of thing. And so the community just wasn't being created. So I think it was 2015, around about that time, when I just thought this has got to stop, right? So I'm going to turn this into a membership so that I
Yeah.
can have that community
I
piece.
can't. We got together in 2015. I can't remember if you had the membership when I came for the chat or not. I can't remember.
Maybe just thinking about it, where I'd started.
Right.
And I just remember, but I'd also, in my mind, I was thinking, well, if nobody joins, I'm just not going to do. I'm not going to run these events anymore because this is ludicrous. The money
Yeah.
side.
Yeah.
So I remember in 2015, at the last event of the year, which was December, and I stood up in a room full of people and said to everybody, this is what's going to happen. So, I'm going to turn this into a membership, and it's going to cost X, and all your events will be included and whatever. And as I was doing it, that one of those classic situations where you're feeling the sort of energy in the room like dissipating, and
Yes.
feel like you just want a
And
big hug
you're the
to,
only person speaking, and
like,
you.
oh my God, what have I done? And sort of, but then like something out of a movie, there was one person from the back of the room who stood up and said, I'll join.
Oh, good.
Thank you.
Oh, that crowd. That crowd. What's the word? There's a special word for it, isn't there? It's about one, like you say, one person does it, and then
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
everybody does it.
Yeah, exactly. So I was like, then somebody else did it, and then and I was like, oh, okay. So I can build from this. I've got two people willing to pay me
Yeah,
money.
yeah.
And then the Trainers Walk membership just then um, went from strength to strength, really, and had, we still did the events, but they were all included. And then we had all the online stuff around that, like clinic sessions once a month, spotlight sessions. And
Did you, when you say that you still did the events, but they were included in the membership fee, did that make it more financially viable for you? And did you still have to travel around the country doing them, or did you outsource the hosting of them to different
no,
areas?
no, no, because this was a different thing to those workshops that I was running.
Oh,
So
okay. So you
I'd
changed the
actually,
offer.
yeah, I changed that, and I'd actually stopped running those workshops face to face, and I started running them online. And this was, way,
Radical stuff, yeah.
yeah, way back. I used to remember doing them. I split that course, which was a 1 day course, into 6 hour sessions, and I used to run them in the evenings. So people would sign up for the course, and then they'd be, Monday evening, seven till eight kind of thing for 6 weeks. And actually, I remember thinking at the time, not only was this great for me in terms of my time, because I used to do the tennis with Ryan, come back, dump my bags in the hallway, and then come on, whatever it was, go to webinar in those days and do my thing, do my course. Because when I ran it as a 1 day course, there was always so much to cram into 1 day.
Mm.
By the time you take all the breaks out and everything, there was probably only about 4 hours or something. But doing it online just felt a bit more leisurely. It was, so I was happy with it, and obviously people could just do it in their pajamas, and they were quite happy, and everything. So
Mm. They
so
could
that
listen
was
to a recording if they missed one.
exactly. So yeah, so I was already doing that. And then Trainers Talk, I kind of brought the online elements in. And then, of course, the other thing that was happening was this alert service.
Yeah.
So
How did the idea come to you for that?
it didn't. And I'd love to claim credit for this, but it wasn't an idea, because what happened, it was a total fluke. Because one day I got an email from somebody, um, and she said, Sharon, I've just won this big contract in London. It's for an investment bank to run lunch and learn sessions. And I've got loads of them, and they're all on different topics. And they're paying shed loads of money for 45 minutes. It's 900 quid. It's like, wow, like,
Ah,
this is
wow.
way back in 2013. So she said, I know you've got loads of trainers on your mailing list. Can you help me? And I said, yeah, okay. So I sent out an email. And then obviously she got trainers, and she was very happy. And I just didn't think anything about it.
So you
Uh,
made nothing from that apart from
they made
goodwill.
nothing.
Mm.
Exactly. And then I got another email from somebody else, because this person had told this other person, oh, go and talk to Sharon, she'll get you training. And I got another one, and then another one. This, Nicola, I kid you not, this went on for 18 months, right? Of me.
No.
Yes, right? Because
I,
you know what I'm like. So,
I expect I might have had something to say about that at that
well,
lunch.
yes, you absolutely did. But then this is hilarious. This is the funniest thing ever. So I remember when I decided, right, I need to start charging for this. So I'm going to turn this into a subscription, right? What shall I charge? I had no idea. Looked to figure out the air. I know. Let's make it a no-brainer for people. £27 for the year, right? Amazing, amazing.
Okay.
Now, who's going to say no to this? And I was at tennis, right? Yeah, as I was there every afternoon at tennis, and I'm sat there on the balcony overlooking the tennis. I've got my notepad out, and I'm like, right, and I'm going, and then I've got my, 27 times however many people were on my mailing list, 3,000 or whatever, 27 or whatever. Oh my God, that's amazing. That's a lot of money. Oh my God, for sending one email out. Oh my God, I was like already thinking what I could do with all this money. And so I sent an email out, right? Okay, saying, as from, these, it's going to be £27. It's not going to be free, blah, 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 blah. And I was like, I got home. I was like, oh, okay, let's just wait for the money to start rolling in here. Like, how many people signed up for this? Do you think?
40.
No,
Out of how many thousand people on your list?
3,000-ish.
3,000. Okay. 300.
No. Oh, I wish. Right. Okay. I'll tell you, right? Not a single person.
No.
Not only that, I got abusive emails from some people saying, "How dare you start charging for this?" I'm just like,
Oh, I'm
I just think
astonished.
it's awful that you're trying to make money out of da 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 da.
I
And
thought you were going to
like,
tell me that you'd put in the thing £27 per month instead of per year
oh my
by
God.
accident.
No, 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 no. And so, as you can imagine, I was like, well, that's a lesson learned, isn't it, Sharon? Kind of thing. So, but then I thought, okay, but I'm not backing down on this. I'm not doing it for free.
Yeah, no, no.
And then what happened, I think, as people realized that those emails had stopped, that they weren't getting them anymore,
Yeah.
they started to trickle in.
So what did you do when the employers contacted you?
I just said
Did,
that
did,
yeah, I just said that I didn't, I wasn't going to send like the emails out anymore. But it actually didn't take very long until I got my first few trickles of
mm,
people. Um, but yeah, it was interesting because I'm a very, as I know, and I was worse in those days. I get upset about things like that, and I was like, why are these
you're a
people not
sensitive
paying me?
soul.
I am. Why are these people not willing to pay me? What have I done? Da, 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 da. But then I also knew that, well, I'm not doing that anymore.
No,
that's
massive, massive
so
benefit to people. Yeah.
exactly. And but that just grew after that. Hilarious tale that just grew from strength to strength, really. And people kept joining, and it's still in existence today.
Now
So
we've got to get on because time is
sorry,
running
sorry, sorry.
away,
I
and we've
know.
got to get on to the story of the year that I've heard.
Oh God.
So you're happily going along. You've moved house a couple of times. Tell everybody what you told me the other day.
Oh God. So this is sort of going back to COVID. So if I just sort of quickly talk pre-COVID,
Yeah,
Trainer Talk was going really well. Our events were sort of packing out, 50, 60 people, thriving membership. COVID was really good for it because lots of trainers didn't, were at home all day. They didn't know how
they were
to do
suddenly forced to
training,
interact with the online world.
all of
Yeah,
that stuff. So that was all, and there was a real amazing community spirit um, because trainers were particularly hit by COVID. So I was spending a lot of time helping and supporting people through that. Anyway, so all of this time we were with the Trainers Talk live events, we were running them virtually. And then at the end of that 2 years, we decided that we would go back to face to face. And you know what? And I just also moved to Wales from the Midlands, and I just didn't want to. I didn't really want to run these events anymore. But people were kind of so desperate to be together again after 2 years, kind of thing. And I didn't want to let people down, but I just there was I'm very woo woo. I've got more woo woo over the years and very intuitive, and there was
I
just
think
like
we all have. Yeah.
there was just a feeling like, why do I not want to do this? Something is like, and I just I just felt I didn't want to do it, but I was doing it out of obligation, and I just didn't feel good about the whole thing. So anyway, went along and did it, and then we did the event, and it was a 2-day event, and one person brought in a little COVID present into the room, and so and lots of people left that event with COVID, of which I was one, and I got home from the event, and it was 2-day event, like Thursday, Friday, and then on the Monday, I just woke up in the morning and just thought, oh, I don't feel very well. And I was sitting on the patio at 4 o'clock in the morning, feeling really hot. And I thought it was the usual hot flushes and everything, but
Burning up.
yeah, And I just thought, oh, I don't feel really sick. And so anyway, and I then started to cough by that stage. Anyway, fast forward to about 11 o'clock, and I was running a mastermind session for my mastermind group, another one of my products and services. And all of a sudden, I just thought, oh, I just don't feel that. I just feel dizzy. And I just got up from here on Zoom, and I just went down on my hands and knees just feeling, and all that. I'd never felt like that before, but all this
It's a
ringing
very
in my
strange
ears and
sensation.
everything
Yeah.
pushing in my ears. And so, and a little voice in my head said, I need to get some fresh air, just need to get some fresh air. So I got up, and then toddled off to get some fresh air. And
Oh, and
then
everyone's chatting amongst themselves on
they
the
were
call.
chatting amongst themselves on the call. And then I woke up in the hallway with my face bashed in, blood everywhere,
Oh, oh
teeth
my God.
everywhere. And yeah, and then so basically
Your husband found you, didn't he?
he did, yeah. He just nipped out to the shops. And I mean, I don't think I was out for very long, probably just, a minute, seconds or whatever.
Mm.
But he came, and I just just, it's a weird sensation just lying there. And I'm just thinking, where am I? Why am I here? It's like, why am I in the hallway? It was just really weird. And then we toddled off to hospital, and that was another comedy of errors because I was there for 5 days, because they had to operate on my jaw and put a steel pin in it or whatever they do. But they kept putting it off all the time. They kept saying, we're going to do
Nil
it.
by mouth all
Yeah, and then they
day.
didn't do it. And they're like, every
Wow.
day going through all this stress and
And were you
everything.
in lots of pain?
Well, not really. I think I was just, I've seen this before actually. When my son broke his arm, he said that he did. I think you just go into this shock. You
Yeah,
just
your body
don't
protects you,
really
doesn't it?
feel this pain. It was the most bizarre thing because I'm terrified of hospital. I hate anything like that.
Mm.
But the fact that I went and I had every test imaginable, blood tests, MRIs, this X-rays, and I just went through them all without a bother on me. And I think because I think I don't know, it was
It's
very
such a
weird.
shock to the system. What
Yeah,
had
it
happened?
was just really weird. So anyway, and I broke my ears as well. I couldn't hear anything. It was just awful
So
until
what
they.
had happened to the people on the webinar?
But they were just sitting there thinking, "Oh, where's Sharon?"
So what happened? Did your husband go and tell them and turn them
Yeah,
off?
yeah. He told them, and then oh my god, and then we yeah. So
Chaos
then
ensued.
yeah. So what or whatever. So yeah. So that was like a recovery. It took me 8 months to get over that. Because what happened was I then went into had to recover from the broken jaw and everything. And so I tell you what, if any of you listening to this ever need to lose weight, you don't need to go through all these fad diets and all that. You just need to eat soup, right?
live
Every day,
live live on liquid food. Yeah.
and the weight will fall off you. I'm telling you, I lost
You
so
didn't
much.
have much to lose, did you?
Well, no, everyone keeps telling me this, and it was quite concerning because it got to the stage where then I got really anxious, and I couldn't I thought that I couldn't swallow, so I was eating I wasn't even having the soup, right? So I was just like a skeleton, and got very weak, and I was also really anxious, and I was just lying on the sofa, like wanting to sort of get through the day and sliding into
Not like you at all.
not
So
like me at all.
how this is one of the reasons I wanted to interview you, because when you told me the story, I was like, ugh. How do you run a business when you've just broken your jaw, you've been in hospital, and you're now debilitated by what's happened to you, to the point where 8 months on you're like, you're really anxious. How do you run a business like that?
Well, I was really, really lucky because my wonderful one, I had my team really helped me because it's not
Mhm.
just me in the business. I have a wonderful team who were just worth their weight in gold, and also the members of my community also stepped in and ran sessions for me.
Wow.
And like this same mastermind group that I was running, they just said, okay, well, I'll facilitate the next session, you know,
Nice.
and I had people in my training sort of community go, no, don't worry, I'll facilitate the next session. Um, and it got to the stage where on some of them, because then what happens is then this anxiety manifested in me not being able to talk, which was the most bizarre thing. But I used to do coaching sessions on WhatsApp, like messaging,
Okay.
and
Well, again, well ahead of your time, because I've only just heard of people doing this voice note coaching.
yeah, yeah, and people actually liked it because they said that it gave them time. When I asked them a question, and put it in WhatsApp, it gave them time to sort of process it and think about it rather than
Hmm.
when you're just talking. So that was quite interesting. But yeah, it was really, really amazing. And I was just so thankful and grateful to everybody, because I'd have to tell you, my business financially did not suffer at all, at
That is
all.
amazing.
And it was really, really amazing.
And this
Um,
was all in 2002, 22,
this was
2022.
2022, 2023. So
Okay.
there was like the end of 2022, and then it took me, it was May of that year when I got better again, because
Now
I
tell the story of how you got better, because that's a good
well
one.
yeah, so basically I'd had my husband sent me to the doctors in December, just after Christmas, because by that stage he was quite concerned about me, because he was like, if you don't start eating something, or
Yeah.
you're going to end up in hospital like on a drip or something. And I was quite concerned about myself, because I was like, why? This is, and it was horrible. It was a horrible time. And so I'd gone to the doctors, and he was lovely. I have to say, he wasn't one of these doctors that just was writing you prescription. As he was lovely. Spent an awful lot of time with me, and of course, I was struggling to talk. And he just said, "Okay, I think anti-anxiety med or whatever." He'd given me beta blockers to begin with, and they were great because they did help me just sort of get out my feet and just help me at least take a walk without freaking out. They were good, and I came off them pretty quickly. They're not addictive or anything. So, um, but then, I was still struggling to talk. It didn't fix that. So he said, "Here you are. Here's anti-anxiety or depression or whatever." Got home, looked at the packet, and thought, "Oh, no, thanks, I'm not taking those." So about a month later, there was no improvement. So I went back, did the same thing, and he said, "Okay, all right, okay, well, I'll give you another lot of, these are a bit different, they're a bit stronger, bearing in mind." And so I like got home,
Did he
looked at
know
the
you hadn't taken the first lot?
yes, yes, he
All
did,
right.
encouraging me to try something else. Same thing. I got home, looked at them, and I just, I don't want to take that. I don't want to take them. I mean, I'm
It's
a
such
person
a shock
that
to the system when you've always been a coper and a practical person, down to earth character, and now you've got anxiety, which you thought was
yeah,
other people had. You didn't think
exactly,
you'd ever have it.
exactly. I mean, when I look back at myself at that time, I was thinking the other day actually when I was walking back from the beach, and I was thinking it was this time 2 years ago that I was struggling. I used to walk up and down my lane because that was as far as I could get. Because as soon as I went onto the main road, I'd just start panicking. It was
Yeah.
just horrible. So anyway, so I thought, no, I can't do this. So then I just thought, right, what the hell am I going to do? Because I can't go back to the doctors again, because he's going to say, well, why are you here again? Like, you've just
Yeah,
ignored
I'm
my
you're not
advice.
taking what I'm giving you. What
Exactly. So I thought I really do need therapy. Um, but I started to look for, I didn't want a counsellor. I wanted a psychotherapist who specialised in trauma related anxiety, because I've done a lot of reading around, as I normally do, around when you've had a trauma, which I had, how it gets stuck in the body, and it has to be released. So I started looking around for this, and then a lot of people, frankly, just didn't reply to me. And then the
what you were
therapist,
contacting therapists and they didn't reply?
yeah, they didn't even
How
reply,
odd.
some of them. And then the ones that did reply said, well, yes, but we can't, unless you come and talk, I can't help you, you know. So, and then there's just, I just think, God, the universe sent me this lady who who basically was a psychotherapist who specialized in trauma related anxiety. And she replied to my email and she said, well, I can do sound therapy. You won't have to talk. So, and not only that, she lived literally 15 minutes walk away from me.
That's manifesting at its finest, isn't it?
Isn't it? Right? Isn't it? And so, and I just remember, one, it was a real struggle to actually walk that far, because I'd never walked that far in 8 months.
Wow.
And I'm a 2 hour a day walker. And I just remember, so I got there, so that was a big achievement. I knocked on the door, she opened it, and I literally went, I could barely talk, and I went, hello, hello, and they were like, oh, and then she went, okay. And then she laid me down on this couch and then started to think, it was all very tuning forks and uh, Himalayan gongs. It's all very vibrational and everything. It's very
Yeah.
relaxing. And I just lay there while she was
It's
doing
called a
all
sound bath.
sound bath, it's shamanic sound therapy. That
Even
was
better.
the thing. And then I got up off the couch and I sat down, and then she said to me, how was that? And I said, I just sort of a little bit struggling. I said, oh, okay. And she said, well, do you want to come back next week? And I said, yeah, okay. And I walked back home again. And then my husband was in the kitchen and he was there and he making a cup of tea, whatever. And he went, oh, okay, how did it go? Bearing in mind, for the last 8 months, we were communicating by post-it notes because I was
No,
writing things
really,
down, right? Because
that
I couldn't
bad.
thought it was that bad. And so I literally, so he was prepared for me to, get the post-it note out. And I just said, he said, how was it? And I just turned around and looked at him and I said, it was great, thanks. And he looked and he
You
went,
must have fallen over.
what the hell? Um, and it wasn't, I wasn't quite at my full, like I'm talking now, but it was certainly a massive breakthrough. And then I went back the next week, and the next week I'd had a proper talking session because I was literally talking again
Yeah,
at
yeah.
that stage. And I carried on going to her for about 6 months as a talking
That's
therapist.
nice. That's nice. So, because you could have been all over in 2 weeks, and that's not a great business model for her,
No,
is it?
exactly, because there was still, I still wanted to make sure that
Yeah.
the people,
And also having someone,
you
I
know,
mean, I've done therapy a couple of times. I've got to say, none of those times particularly worked, but for solving the issue I went for. But it is a real luxury to have someone who is completely not in your family and your friend circle to talk to absolutely honestly.
it is absolutely brilliant. And actually, when I stopped it, I was almost, it got to the stage where I was thinking, oh, this is just like an indulgence coming here every week. I probably
Yes, it
shouldn't
starts
be
to
doing
feel a
this.
bit self-indulgent.
You
Yeah.
know what I mean? But I would actually, I keep thinking to myself, should I go back? And then I was like, no, because it is indulgent, because it is really, yeah,
Well, once you're better, it is. All the time you feel you need it and it's doing something. That's fine, but to
yeah,
carry on when you feel better
exactly,
is
exactly.
just a little bit.
Yeah,
Better to go and get a beauty therapy, I think.
exactly, exactly. But
Get
it
your
was,
toenails done.
yeah, but yeah, it was wonderful. And thank God for that lady, because honestly, I don't know
Yeah.
what I would have done. But
Sound, we had a little bit of a chat about the sound therapy, didn't we? I mean, I'm very into ancient aliens and all that stuff, and even current ones. But
yeah,
there is a lot of talk in that community about sound waves and harmonics and how cathedrals used to heal people because of the sound, the music, and the
yeah,
resonance from the windows and all that stuff. And a lot of the cathedral windows are actually the same pattern as
mm,
sand is if you put it on and then play music through the reverberating plates. They
gosh.
actually form the same patterns. It's absolutely incredible. And some people think that's how Machu Picchu was made and how the pyramids were built, some
Yeah,
kind of sound resonance.
it's amazing. I do think the other thing there was as well that really played into that, I think, because it clearly worked and it did feel like a miracle. It honestly felt like a miracle.
Wow.
But I do think part of that was, yes, the sound therapy does work, but I think a lot of it was because I really wanted it to work.
Yeah.
Because it was really last chance saloon, because I just thought, if this doesn't work, then what am I going to do? I can't go back to the doctors. And
No.
what am I going to do? And so I do think it's that power of intention. It's believing in something, isn't it? That
Yeah.
does work and work miracles.
So what's happened to the business since that the 2023? Because we're 2025 now, brand
Yeah,
new.
amazing.
What are you still going to carry on with the same offers? Are you going to change anything? Are you going to streamline it? What's in store for your company in the next few
Well,
years?
it's very timely actually, because I did have a bit of a last year. I did have a bit of a clear out of things and stopped doing some of the things. We stopped last year. We stopped doing Train Sort Live as a live event.
Mhm.
Karen, fortunately, this was the other thing. I'd already asked Karen to Karen Curitin in our community to take over the running of that event before I had my accident. Literally, when we were in the room on that day, I'd said to her, Karen, next year, how do you fancy running the events? And thank God I did, because I wouldn't have been able to do them anyway. You know, it was
Yeah.
really weird. But she ran them for a year, and then we stopped last year because we just felt that people weren't coming in the way that they used to. These people are a bit more discerning about face-to-face events these days and stuff. But we are thinking about running one again, or Karen is, at the end of this year, which will be nice. Trainers Talk is still running. The alert service is still running. I have a mastermind group now, which we call the Growth Circle, which I've just got my second group started. So that's really nice.
Wow.
Working
Okay. Nice.
in a container. I'm doing that. I do one-to-one coaching. I still have that original course, the How to Launch a Training.
I was going to ask you, is the book still selling?
Yeah, well, it's still selling, but also I turned that into an online course, and it's an evergreen course that people can join any time. But the other thing that's just happened quite timely is that yesterday I've become the Athena network leader for Swansea.
Oh my goodness.
I
Oh my
know,
goodness, Jacqueline.
Jacqueline.
Jacqueline, yeah.
I know.
Someone who I've interviewed for the podcast. I
I
must put
know.
yeah, that's
It's
amazing.
amazing because this has been on my. I've been thinking about it since last May, so it's been quite a long time thinking about it. And the reason I moved to Swansea, as you know, and I, still feel I don't know many people here.
It
And
is
I
a great way to get to know local people. It
great
really
way to
is.
get to know
Yeah.
local people. And also, I've spent so many years working with trainers, but it'd be quite fun to actually work with some other female business owners as well. So it seemed to tick a lot of the boxes. And but also I had a bit of a epiphany over the I don't know whether I told you about this when we spoke or whether it's been since then, but I had over Christmas, you know how you have this when you start thinking about things, and I realized that the best years in my business had been the ones where I didn't overanalyze. I just went with my feeling. I put one foot in front of the other. I followed my nose and did all that stuff. And last year, for whatever reason, maybe even the year before, I'd realized that, and it's very unlike me, but I'd started doing a lot of that. I'd started nitpicking at things. I'd started looking at, oh, is that making money? Is that doing, and all this over analysis. And that's not me, actually. I just usually go with stuff
You had
and
too
then
much time on your hands.
worry about it later. I just go,
Is that because you're an empty nester now?
maybe, I don't know. I don't know what it was. Maybe that was just, I don't know what, maybe it was fear. Maybe it was coming out of my accident and just being more.
A side effect of the anxiety, perhaps.
I don't know, but I was definitely more, I say more analytical. I've never been analytical in my life. I'm just not that kind of person, And so, and I just had this epiphany because I thought, what's that all about? So stop doing it. Get back to Sharon. Get back to following your nose.
Intuitive.
Yeah, that kind of thing, because it's always served me well. And so this Athena thing, I'd had loads of conversations in May, June, in the summer, and it got to September, and I just literally stopped thinking about it because it was occupying too much space in my head.
I can't believe they don't have an Athena in Swansea already. Or
No,
did they have an no?
they have
Well,
now.
well, Swansea's quite a decent sized town, isn't it?
I know, they have now.
Oh, she must be overjoyed.
Well, yeah, I hope so. And so,
She's
yeah,
a
so
what? Jacqueline Rogers.
Jacqueline
That's who it
Rogers,
is.
yeah.
Yeah.
So I just thought it over Christmas, as I say, I'd put it to bed, and I would literally have thought, I'm not going to do this in September. I was like, stop thinking about this. And then again, going back to the intuition, I was literally over Christmas, it kept floating back into my consciousness again.
Yeah.
And I was like, I sat there and thought, why is this? What is this about? Because it's not going away. And then that on top of this, let's get back to doing what I always do. I just thought, right, let's do it. Let's take inspired action and just get back to
A
Sharon. So
very
yeah,
successful entrepreneur once told me, if I have a business idea, because we were talking about it, how thick and fast they come all the time. He says, I tell myself, you're not allowed to do it till next Sunday.
yeah,
And then if you can't stop thinking about it, do something about it next Sunday,
yeah,
because it just means it's meant to happen. If you can't stop thinking about it, it keeps floating to the top of your mind, like you say. Because I have business ideas like 5 a day,
yeah, yeah,
and I've learned to ignore them. But if one keeps coming back, then that's the one to pay attention to. So
yeah.
that's
So
going
then,
to great that because that's going to help your business. It's going to help your social life. You're going to get to know some very. I mean, I when I joined BNI, I used to go because I got my bank manager there, I got my accountant there, and both of them helped me get the hotel when it was time to do that. So and I my social we just moved to Worthing,
yeah,
Irving and I, and it was my bank manager that took me to the Pepper Tree restaurant where I met Steve, who I ended up having our ladies networking nights there, and it was just an incredible series of events that flowed from just
exactly.
going to this networking thing.
It's being open to opportunity, and I'd literally I'd been to a couple of meetings and things, and I thought about being a member, but obviously they don't have one in Swansea, so I would have to be one of the other ones online. And but then I thought, no, I don't want to do that. I want to be in charge. I'd rather run it myself,
Yes,
So
it'll just annoy you
yeah,
if someone
exactly.
else does it and doesn't do it up to
Exactly,
your standards. Yeah.
exactly.
Well, that's
So
great.
yeah,
Oh, that's great news. Oh, do say hello to her for me.
I
We're
will.
very cordial indeed. She's
Yeah.
an amazing
Lovely.
person.
Yeah, she is. She really
Yeah.
is. So
Well,
yeah,
that's
so
very
let's
exciting.
find it.
So if I could send you your ideal client, if someone's listening here, what, who are they, and how can you help them?
They would be a freelance trainer who are either uh, well, they could be somebody who's thinking about becoming a freelance trainer. They could be somebody who is in the early stages of their business, or they could be somebody who've had a training business for years
Mm.
and want to learn how to get more clients, because most trainers do not like the business development. They like the bit when they're in the training room doing the
Yeah.
delivery, but they don't like the business
But you
development.
can't get into the training room without the business development.
Absolutely.
And there is a downturn coming. Let's all be honest about that. And training is one of those things, unfortunately, that companies do cut. So you've got to get yourself positioned, and you've got to position yourself as the only person for the job in
Yeah.
order to get. So I'm sure you can help people do that.
Yeah. No, absolutely. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. So yeah,
Good. Well, that's all very exciting. And yeah, so where should people go to find out more about your company?
yeah, they should go to the Trainers Training Company.co.uk, the website. I'm on LinkedIn, so Sharon Gaskin on LinkedIn, Facebook, Trainers Training Company, or Sharon Gaskin, Trainers Training Company.
Yeah.
So yeah,
I know.
go and find
I've typed your name in many times and it comes up straight away. So
the
it's all
website
good.
gets loads of traffic. That's another thing.
Yeah,
So
we didn't even talk about the SEO side of things, but you've done very well with SEO, haven't you? And you've got an SEO company so you can guide people on how to use SEO to their advantage as well, which
yes,
is
yeah.
no mean feat.
Yes, absolutely.
Good.
It's all about getting found, isn't it? It's all about
Yeah.
getting
Yeah.
found. So yeah.
Wonderful. What a lovely conversation we've had again.
Oh,
And I'm so thrilled to be able to share your story with the world because it's a really inspirational one and it came out of the blue. It hit you, literally hit you on the chin.
literally.
And, and you've recovered completely and it's all good now. So
Yeah.
that's a great story. Thank you very much for being with us today.
Oh, you're so welcome, Nicola.